And
Hey.
this is the last live show on the Dirty 4 channel. No, I'm kidding. It's because of the circumstance. This is the Quick and Dirty, your source of information for dummies in a hurry. Yeah, I called you a dummy. All right, this is, I am Joel Flam, and I am with Nicolas Pidiktakis. How are you doing, sir?
Not so bad, man. Been sort of enjoying, on my Apple TV that I bought last year. Like, I made the decision to check and see what Paramount Plus is all about.
Yeah.
Because Paramount Plus in the United States, they have like, if for me as a Trekkie, if I were in the US, like that would be the way for me to watch like the new Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, and of course all of the classic series, like original series, Next Generation, and all that. Of course, being in Canada, like on Paramount Plus, you can't see that stuff because in Canada you have to subscribe to Crave in order to watch that stuff. Funny about Crave, because Crave is owned by Bell and CTV and all that. CTV since the 60s with the original series with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and like the legends back then. CTV had the right back then and still has the right today in today's media landscape to stream and to broadcast any and all Star Trek series. So like I always found that a little bit interesting, but at the same time,
that's kind of interesting because I remember I saw some Star Trek stuff on Netflix. So
that was because they weren't organized like CBS and some of the other platforms. They weren't as organized back in the day, and because Netflix at that time was still the dominant streaming service.
So they form a cartel. Oh, I mean a group to control who broadcasts what, basically.
In a way, though, I do remember, and I found this quite hilarious, though probably an oversight or probably intentional. On Netflix back in the day, if you wanted to watch Star Trek, the only thing that was available here in Canada was Star Trek The Next Generation with Sir Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes, Will Wheaton, and all that. While on the American Netflix, you can actually see, the original series, Deep Space Nine, Voyager with Kate Mulgrew and Jerry Ryan, as well as, of course, Star Trek Enterprise with Scott Bakula, who's on NCIS New Orleans, for example. So I always found that a little bit weird, but then when they made the decision to finally allow for all classic Trek, and that's considered classic Trek, to be on Netflix Canada, I felt, okay, that's like goodbye to my social life. I'm going to just binge watch every single episode, and every episode is like effectively an hour long, like 45, 50 minutes if you include back in the day with the commercials. So like I always found it a little interesting that like if I subscribe to Paramount Plus up here in Canada, like I'm doing like a 7-day free trial, though I think I'm going to keep it because Paramount Plus, if let's say you want to watch shows like that new iCarly reboot, which, like, for those who don't know what iCarly is, like iCarly back in the day was showing what internet streaming and posting on the internet was in a fictional setting with like Miranda Cosgrove and Nathan Kress and what's her name? What's the name of the Sam Puckett's actress?
Basically,
Jennifer McCurdy. So like I'm able to watch like the new iCarly show on that, and plus all of the NCIS. Another show that I started to watch like every episode that I grew up watching was the show called Jag. With it was like Judge Advocate General, so like the military. It's like a military lawyer show in the United States. This is one of the NCIS. NCIS actually started out as a Jag spinoff.
Holy shit!
Funny enough.
I didn't know
and
that.
also, Jag was one of the first shows that featured the very lovely and very attractive actress Catherine Bell. If you remember back in the day, like she got one of her starts on Jag back in the day.
Catherine Bell. All right, let's see that.
Yeah, Catherine Bell. She's I think she's like American, and she's also like Persian or Iranian.
Do you say British American?
Well, Catherine Bell got one of her starts there, and like the main actor on that show, David James Elliott, is actually Canadian, from Ontario. So I always found that interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I was watching the first few episodes of Jag like last night, this morning as I was having my morning coffee. Of course, during my breaks, when I'm working from home, I often put up Crave on my Apple TV, and I'm watching like episodes of reboots, and sometimes like I
Yeah.
watch like half an episode of like Star Trek Discovery or some of the classic Trek. So it's like I always found it a bit weird how that is, but at the same time, it's like like can you fault like a company like CTV to always want to hold on to its right to stream something as big as Star Trek?
Yeah. But to a
One of the
point,
biggest,
when they band together, it kind of looked like a fucking cartel, though. Like the
in a
way
way.
not in a way, like the way they prevented, for example, Verizon to get into Canada, for example,
Yeah,
or the
yeah,
way that you absolutely need to go on Crave if you want to watch anything American, like let's say HBO or
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
So
I had Crave for a while though. Like I know what you're talking about when you talk about Crave. The thing for me that didn't work is I think I remember like their fucking app were just garbage. Like just the thing I was watching a lot on Crave was South Park, and at the end of the last 30 seconds, they always have that
yeah,
punch out, like that last jokes that was kind of summing up the whole
yeah,
episode, and
yeah,
then got the generic. But that pissed me off because at the 30 last seconds, they will just cut it off because he thinks it's the generic started, the credit started.
yeah,
So and then I miss it. So that pissed me off. And after I finished watching Game of Thrones and what the other Chernobyl, I had no reason to be there. I have tried to watch Bill Maher thing, and it's nothing against Bill Maher. I just fucking hate late night shows. I think just the formula
well,
is like kind of wearing thin at some point.
well, I definitely see I definitely get where you're coming from, especially like what Jimmy Fallon. Though Jimmy Fallon's not as bad compared to like Jimmy Kimmel
Yeah,
and some of the other late night hosts that have become this weird social justice warrior. Like the reason why I still watch Bill Maher is he actually still brings on guests from a wide variety of ideological backgrounds. Like he still, for whatever reason, brings on Ann Coulter
yeah,
and like some of the other like conservative bimbo, like blonde bimbos at the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like what was the name of the former advisor? Kellyanne Conway was another
Mm,
example of that. He's had like Tommy Lahren
yeah.
on that show, I think,
He
once
had
or
Milo
twice.
Yiannopoulos at some point. He
Yeah,
had
that
Jordan B.
that
Peterson at some point also. He's the kind of guy that will get just anybody across the board as long as it's entertaining. But my
yeah.
problem with late night shows, it's pretty much the same that Dark Stanhope has. It's like they'll just like scratch on the surface to do just a quick joke about something that happened. But they'll never like really satisfy my lust for blood when something shitty happened. Like when a politician kind of fucked up or do something stupid, they'll just do a really on surface joke about it and move on to the next thing. But I don't want to
You,
move on. I'm pissed about it. I want to flip cars. I want to burn shit.
you know who actually got? I just remembered this, Joey. You know
Yeah.
which Canadian politician actually kind of got into trouble for being on Bill
Who?
Maher's show Real Time on HBO? Chrystia Freeland,
No
our
fucking
our
way. What happened?
our deputy prime minister and minister of finance. Yeah, like
Get the fuck out.
before like there was some issue with like her spending more time that was necessary on like something, and like she made an appearance on Bill
Ah.
Maher like
No, no, no. It's the
before.
problem. Is she spend more time on U.S. media than Canadian media? Is that it?
That, and also like because again
Ah,
she is one of the most important members of the Liberal Party in terms of how high up she has become. She's the deputy prime minister.
yeah, yeah,
Before
yeah.
she even ran for politics, just to get a seat when Harper was in power from 2011 to 2015, like she ran to get a seat in Toronto.
Yeah.
She was just a regular journalist talking about different things, and she made a few appearances on Bill Maher's show Real Time. So she definitely like she had gotten into trouble at one point on that.
But what was she saying back then? Like, was she saying anything controversial?
I think she was, from what I remember, though. If anyone watching can correct me on this, because again, I always want to be, I always want to speak the truth.
Yeah,
I remember like she was like I think she had written a couple of books talking about like income inequality, like stuff in sort of
yeah.
like that area. Which for me, I mean,
Which is
that's
absolutely like considering she's a liberal MP is outrageous. Like you don't expect fucking liberal MPs to talk in such ways about like fucking inequalities.
Important
Like
shit.
yeah, like basically the Liberal Party, it's a well-known 1% party that's all for laissez-faire capitalism and no,
Yeah.
it's normal. She talks about it. Like what the fuck you guys thinking about?
No, of course. Um, Given how the media landscape has changed a
Yeah.
lot in terms of like, for example, basically like for me, in my home right now, I still have the Bell Express View satellite boxes. Like I
Yeah.
used to watch my television on those boxes, like
Mm-hmm.
watching CBC The National or
Same
like
here.
the Space Channel,
Yeah.
some of the American stuff like CNN and all that. Me, I haven't touched those boxes in a long time because I don't need it. I watch everything on YouTube, on
Yeah.
Netflix, Crave, Disney Plus for my Marvel and for my Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars. Of course, now I have like my Twitch on it as well, and you can get other things as well. Like the National Film Board of Canada has an app for the more conservatively minded. You can get like the Blaze, where you can find Steven Crowder and Dave Rubin on, or Daily Wire if you want to watch Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Candace Owens, and all of those folks.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
like,
the last
why?
stronghold of freedom we have left, like of choosing what we want to watch. To not
Yeah,
have the government to tell us like, okay, so you can watch this because it's Canadian enough, but that is not Canadian
yeah,
enough for you, so you shouldn't be able to watch it. Like it kind of bring back like my childhood experience of being in Quebecer in a really remote region. It's
yeah.
when we're being taught what being a Quebecer is.
Hmm.
Like I recognize myself in none of this shit except the French thing. Like they talk about the joual, and I'm like, yeah, but joual is some slang from East Montreal. I'm
Hmm.
born 8 hours from there. There's no
Hmm.
fucking way I'm gonna speak it. My dad doesn't speak it at all. My
Hmm.
mother doesn't speak. I know nobody that speaks it, like from my childhood. And there's also like, oh, you have to like the Michel Tremblay fucking novel or theater play. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, but I mean, you read them. It's all about like those factory workers that were forced to speak English at the factories, and were like, yeah, but in remote region, it's such a foreign notion to have to speak English to go to work because it's so overwhelmingly French that even
Hmm.
if the factories were started by a bunch of Americans that doesn't speak French, that like that doesn't resonate with us. Like I grew up with a bunch of guys with which their name was Foster and Ovington and Kenny and McKinnon, for example, and none of
Hmm.
them speak any sort of English.
Hmm.
So just let that sink in for a moment. So that's why the internet is kind of cool because you can then go consume shit about that fits more
Hmm.
about your personality, your angst, your what
Yeah.
you're really going through, instead of just
Or like
being a
your
yeah. Go on,
no,
man.
no, 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 no. Like, no, I get where you're getting that. I get where you're coming from because again, like, what, like the one of the things that sort of made like cable TV or satellite TV fail is that they give you a bunch of channels that you don't want to watch,
Yeah, exactly.
while you only wanted to have like one or two channels. Like, for
Yeah.
example, the two channels when I had like when I actually was using it that I actually made an attempt to watch when I could was the Space Channel, which was with CTV because Space Channel was my first exposure to Star Trek Discovery.
Mhm.
For example, like I didn't have access and I didn't know what Crave was back in I think 2017 or 2018. I only made the decision to get Crave last year when I bought my Apple TV HD, like the black box that you connect to
Yeah,
your
yeah,
TV, because my widescreen at home isn't a modern widescreen with the software. It's an older TV with the older connections. Like I still have like the TV still has the RF
mm.
connection that I can
Yeah,
connect
yeah,
my
yeah.
NES with.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
I
how.
know what you mean. Yeah, yeah, it's fucking
So
old.
like no, it's old, but it's still very useful and still very capable.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I got Crave, like that's how I started to watch, Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard. That's how I got to again rewatch my reboot from way back in the day
Mhm.
and other things. So when you're watching stuff from some of the other channels or apps, like I have the Blaze because I am a Mug Club member for Steven Crowder. Like Steven Crowder
Cool.
was how I actually got into this scene, like being here because I got
Yeah.
to see Steven Crowder first. he had Mike Ward on once, of course,
Yeah,
in like a Skype style interview because Mike Ward was
yeah.
in Quebec and of course Stephen was in the U.S.
Could have taken
Um,
the plane, but yeah, like long live the internet. At least you don't have to go to Texas to like consume
yeah,
Texas content. That's the whole point of it. Like, if
yeah,
you feel more connected to a guy from Texas that like speaks more to you, speaks more to your
yeah,
hierarchy of values and stuff like that, yeah, go
yeah,
by
of
all means you can watch it. But the problem with
course,
it's not only that so much that when you pick a channel, you cannot go to other channels. The
yeah,
problem is like it's also like, let's say I have a channel, right, and there's only one show I want to watch from it. Like, I don't care about the extra fucking
yeah,
90% of your
yeah.
stuff. I just want to watch one thing. Like with the internet now, it's feasible. You can just watch that one thing. It's not necessarily legal.
No, of
I
course,
like the fucking channel to like wake up a little bit and like stop wanting to make all the money in the world and just like try to make as much money. Like if you have one show, give us the possibility to just watch that fucking show, right?
yeah.
Like, I don't want to watch the other crap. I've tried it. They all suck except that one fucking thing.
No, no, of course. Um, I could sort of say the same thing again. Like, if I was in the United States, for example, and again, I wanted to watch like all of the Star Trek stuff, like I would
Yeah,
have to be subscribed to Paramount Plus. And
yeah,
of course, for those who, for example, want to watch, RuPaul's Drag Race and all of the other associated properties like RuPaul All Stars, like Down Under for the Australians and New Zealand's, for the like RuPaul UK, I think they have a version of it in Spain, and
yeah.
they recently released a version of it in the Philippines as well. What that's coming out soon. So you
Hola.
would have to watch
I look
all of
like I
that.
don't have a dickle, but I have a dickle. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So, talking about sort of content creation and content management and just being able to access it, we actually have some surprising developments with regards to something that we've sort of looked at before, which is, of course, our favorite piece of legislation called Bill C-10.
Yeah, what happened with that?
Um, so apparently the Senate actually is living up to what it is supposed to be, which is the chamber of somber second thought within the
Are you telling
Parliament of
me that a
Canada.
bunch of people that are not elected and owe nothing to anybody that can just do whatever they like or feel like it's aligned with their own values without to play politics or play strategies with the party leader?
They've actually doing something I would say positive and constructive, in that they've said Bill C-10 may have some issues and we really do need to look at it. Like, one specific senator from New Brunswick by the name of Senator David Richards from New Brunswick,
Hmm.
who is himself a novelist and a screenwriter, so he has prior exposure and prior experience within like broadcasting, within producing and all that. He says that the bill needs amendments. Like, I'm directly quoting an article here from the Toronto Sun. Think of what the Toronto Sun in terms of their biases, but I'm just reading direct quotes that are indicated in the article. I don't think this bill needs amendments, says the senator, who again is also a novelist and a screenwriter. I think,
Yeah.
however, it needs a stake through the heart of
So
this bill.
basically, it doesn't need the amendment. You just have to fucking throw it in the trash because there's nothing to do with it.
Effectively so.
Yeah.
So the Senate, I think, is putting the brakes on the bill, at least for now. Like the Senate, I think, sort of rose to deal with a couple of issues. Like
Yeah.
right now the I think the Parliament for July and August. So I think in August for sure they have the parliamentary recess for about a month. So that's when all of the members of Parliament come back to their home districts and do case and constituency work. So like up here in Ahuntsic Cartierville where I am, like Minister Melanie Joly would come around and go to her office in Chabanel, and she would actually take care of casework like immigration files and all that stuff in August, and I think as well for parts of July. So here it says, according to a CBC article, so like the Senate rises for summer with like the broadcasting reforms bill, and also another very controversial piece of legislation, a bill that could have outright banned conversion therapy for folks within the LGBT community. Those bills are left in limbo because the Senate has not done anything to pass those legislation to go to the Governor General, who I technically right now again is our Chief Justice. of the Supreme Court because they still haven't found a replacement for Julie Payette since
Wow.
she made the decision to resign. So the Senate has left both bills
Mm.
in this sort of legislative limbo. And the one thing that is very, very concerning, or what could happen, and I'm personally hoping it happens, and just to explain what's going on, is that Prime Minister Trudeau, and there's a lot of talk about the possibility of a fall election
Yeah.
happening, and if an election is called, and we've already seen like at least a couple of things on the surface, like Justin Trudeau like cleaning up his hair, and we all saw him during the pandemic
Hmm.
sporting the stubble that was very uncharacteristic of him prior to right now. Like he always was a rather well kempt and very clean shaven
Yeah.
sort of dude. So he of course cleaned himself up in that sense. What would happen if an election is called is that any piece of legislation that is still being considered in the first, the second, or the third reading, completely gone,
Oh.
completely thrown into the legislative graveyard,
Yeah, yeah,
completely.
yeah. But on the
So
same
it,
time, if they get reelected, which is likely to happen,
yeah,
that will mean they can just countercharge with another piece of
they,
legislation.
they would have to, they can, but they still have to go through the normal legislative process, unless, of course, like again, if let's say an election is called in
Yeah,
the fall and that conversion therapy bill isn't passed or is in limbo, or Bill C-10 is still in limbo in the Senate. What will happen, of course, the slate is completely wiped clean in terms of current legislation. Like everything
yeah.
that was passed by this parliament is still on the law books. Like that, you can't touch.
Mm.
At least for now, another
Yeah,
election has to be called. When another election is called, the elections happen. Everything's confirmed by Elections Canada and all that. Justin Trudeau, if he's reelected, and of course we always have to say if, because you never know.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
never
They
take
might. We don't
anything
know
for
that much here in O'Toole, and like the Liberal Party, right
Jack
up until
Mayfield.
now, they have been really smart of not being too aggressive attacking Erin O'Toole because you don't want him to be the underdog, and just by the possibility of him like saying a complete sentence without looking like a retard, be saw like another savior of the conservative movement. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to take that risk, right? So
No, no, of course.
yeah, yeah. So they have been pretty smart right up until now. So of course, but if the situation is to be maintained until the final vote, like the final ballot, like meaning the election, right? The elections. That will mean that the Liberal Party would be the majority government. Like if
Yeah,
the tendency
yeah,
is maintained, yeah,
yeah, and that can certainly be backed up. Again, folks, for those who are watching, I always make it a habit when people talk about polls to consult 338 Canada
yeah.
or QC 125, started up by the Cégep de Saint-Laurent professor François Fournier, I believe his name is.
It's also a
Who,
compilation of polls that he's doing. Also, it's not
yeah,
just one poll he put. He compiled a couple of polls,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
really interesting. But
yeah,
just let's go
yeah,
back to the Senate. Like they give a
yeah,
pretty interesting explanation why the law is still in limbo and why they're all likely like if that's the tendency that it's maintaining right now and that's the tone that it's maintaining right now to the Senate, they might send it over to the common to make them redraw the thing. And I remember the main thing that kind of worried them is there not enough study to support the necessity of the law.
yeah. No, no, that's certainly that's for sure. I mean,
Mm.
again, a lot of folks like the YouTuber based in BC, JJ McCullough, has come out very
Viva free.
strongly again. Yeah, Viva Frey,
Yeah,
our I would say our legal ninja, who has
yeah,
appeared at least 3 times in the on Pantelis's podcast,
yeah,
talking about the bill. Other creators have spoken out against the bill as well. Like again, where does the government get off? Again, first, this is the very same prime minister who at one point said that Canada is a post-national state.
yeah, but it's not.
While then at the same time, it's not. We still have nations like the
Yeah,
Quebecois, the Anglo-Canadians, the various
the
indigenous,
native.
indigenous First Nations folks, and
Mhm.
of course minorities, such as technically like myself, within Greeks and other more visible minorities as well. So it's like, where does this guy get off saying that
Yeah.
we're supposed to be this post-national state, but then we have to protect the Canadian nation. Like you
That
have to be
always been
intellectual.
the weird thing about Canada. It's like they like to claim that they're a multi-ethnic country, which they
Yeah,
are, but on the same time, they kind of defend the status quo of the two main group that have funded the country, which is the French and the Anglos.
yeah.
Mm.
No, absolutely. Um, so again, this is like when a government has to legislate on this to promote Canadian content, that's where you see that
Oh,
things are
wait.
so weak. Oh,
Have you heard about that? Lol, there were a suspicious advertisement on QC 125 website.
oh, yeah, that type of website and other websites, they usually just have a bombardment, like a whole host of just like
Mm.
online random ads, because that's how you have to pay for hosting, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's nothing to worry. Like,
That,
Olivier, don't worry. I've been on that website several times because
mhm.
it does a good job. Like that guy, Professor Fournier from the Cégep de Saint Laurent, he's done a hell of a job bringing up all of those polls that talk about the federal elections, the Assemblée Nationale. He did it the same thing for the municipal elections in 2017, and I can't wait for the municipal elections to come up later this year in November. Please, folks, go vote. There shall be no taxation without representation. God damn it!
Yeah. Talking about the okay, so talking about elections now. I think we have a
Of
little
course,
time to kind of talk a little bit about it.
yeah,
That's
of
gonna be
course,
a
of course.
longer episode today, like because it's Canada Day. We don't want to spend as much time as possible to understand a little bit how the political landscape in Canada has come to be as it is right now. At the
Mm.
beginning, I wanted to just like go from 2011 and then to today, just a quick overview. But as Nicolas mentioned it to me, like early on, before we were live on this show, that no, actually the main election that changed the landscape of Canada for as we know it, like in our modern time, that was when Mulroney was elected. So, do you want to talk a little bit about us about it, and why do you think it changed? So, it was such a fundamental election, and how it changed Canada as it is today.
Well, the 1984 election, for those who are watching, was the end of almost 2 decades worth of Liberal Party rule under Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And at the very end, it was John Turner who was the prime minister. Of course, John Turner, I think, earlier this year or last year, passed away. And of course, may he rest in peace, sir. The 1984 election upended 2 decades worth of Liberal Party rule. The way that, or how Brian Mulroney, who was the Prime Minister of Canada from 84 till 93, or until like towards the end in 93, he managed to cobble together an interesting coalition of soft Quebecois nationalists, which
Hmm.
sort of got at the Liberal Party power base in Quebec and in parts of Ontario, and of course managed to get mainstream conservatives, which typically the conservative vote and the conservative base is between 25 to 30% of the Canadian electorate,
Yeah.
while the Liberals are always fluctuating between 35 to 40%. 40% is that golden number that you need to have a majority in the House of Commons.
Yep.
He managed to upend that considerably in 1984. And with it, he had like, if you just give me a second, I'm gonna find the election results right here. So 1984 Canadian.
84. All right.
It's okay. I pretty much have it. Come on, Google. That's
Yeah,
it.
basically, for those who don't know, like for the nationalist part, like the French nationalist part, don't forget that Lucien Bouchard, that was prime minister for a while and almost make the yes win on the referendum of 1995, used to be a disgruntled
Conservative.
conservative. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He thought that the
Yeah.
New Deal with Quebec will go on. That never
Yeah.
happened. So he kind of saw that was the end of the end. There were nothing more to do in Canada, and also on a provincial level, that event were quite important because the former leader of the youth of the Liberal Party of Quebec under Bourassa
Hmm.
went on to start the ADQ that will end up being the CAQ right now. There you
Yeah.
go.
So just to give the basic stats, of the 1984 election, according to the Wikipedia article, which actually does a really good job highlighting it. So before the election was called, the Liberals, of course, were in power with a majority of 135 seats. The Conservatives had 100, and the NDP had about 31. Of course, no, like NDP only lost one seat, but the really huge thing that happened was the fact that the Liberals, from 135 seats, they had only 40 seats. They lost 95 seats in total, and they lost about 16 to 17% of the electoral, the electoral percentage, like that popular support. While the Conservatives, of course, got a commanding 211 seats out of the possible 282. So they really, they basically swept the entire country across the board in the 1984 election. However, another election that really changed things, and we are still feeling the ramifications of that election to this day, was the 1993 election, which of course saw the Progressive Conservatives lose their overwhelming majority. They even still had an overwhelming majority that they got in the 1988 election, but not as overwhelming as they got in the 1984 election. You could certainly, if you want like an understanding of what happened in 1993 with that election, JJ McCullough the YouTuber did a hell of a video describing what happened in that election with Kim Campbell, who was the first and so far only woman Prime Minister of Canada, who was at the head of the Progressive Conservative Party at the time.
Highly unpopular at that.
Hmm?
Highly unpopular at that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the 1993 election, of course, we saw that was the election that brought in Jean Chrétien as the Prime Minister of Canada, since he was the head of the Liberal Party at the time. And of course, we all know that Jean Chrétien was a very politically successful Prime Minister who had 3 majority mandates back to back from 93, 97, though at risk of getting a minority government, though he managed to pull through in 2000. And we all, of course, know what happened between 2003 and 2004 with Paul Martin sort of going, launching the internal revolt and taking over as Prime Minister in 2003. And of course, he led the Liberal Party to a minority government in 2004, and they lost power completely in 2006 when Harper got his first of the 2 minority governments that he had. So the 1993 election is also very important because, first, given the failure of Mulroney to get Meech Lake and Charlottetown Accord passed so that Quebec can finally sign on to the very constitution that they want to amend, but they still haven't signed it, so come the fuck on. That's just weird and also somewhat hypocritical. Secondly, given the failure of Meech Lake and Charlottetown, of course, we all saw what happened with like Lucien Bouchard and those folks. They formed the Bloc Québécois Party, and they actually, and this is a very interesting quirk about the 1993 election, the Bloc Québécois actually formed the official opposition, the party with the second highest number of seats in the 1993 election,
which kind of makes sense when you look at it, because the Conservatives were split into 2 movements now. The vote was split. Like the Anglo-Conservative was either voting for the Progressive Conservative or the Reform Party, if I remember well, right? Exactly. And the bloc, like Quebec is like still the second largest province in terms of population in the country. So if we vote like as fucking lemmings for the same party, that's gonna show in their result. So
no, of course,
they were supposed to be temporary at that. They were supposed to be there for until 1995, and they still kept going right after.
No, of course. I mean, the progressive Conservative Party sort of split into 2 in terms of like the Progressive Conservatives. They were still there after the 1993 elections, just from having a massive majority to just 2 seats. And one of those seats was held on by none other than Jean Charest himself, who then became the premier of Quebec under the Quebec Liberal Party from 2003, I believe, until 2012. No, was it 20? Yeah, it was 20.
It was 2012 when Pauline Marois took power on a minority government.
So you had, of course, many of the more hardcore conservatives who made the decision to switch to the newly formed Reform Party under Preston Manning, who, by the way, I met at one of his Manning Center for Building Democracy conferences. A really nice guy. Like I asked him a couple of questions about Senate reform, which was pretty cool. Um, like so that happened, and of course the Reform Party was where Stephen Harper himself sort of
Yeah,
came up through, and of course the Reform Party changed its name to the Canadian Alliance Party
yeah,
because they wanted to make themselves look more Canadian instead of just being focused on one particular part of the country and
yeah,
focusing
yeah.
on just being a protest party. They wanted to be a little more mainstream, and we
Also,
all know what
also, like
happened.
just to give a general overview, like what we call the Blue Tories, they were part of the Reform Party or the Canadian Alliance, and
Yeah,
the Red Tories, the left wing to conservative, more left, like
yeah,
more let's say moderate conservative. They were still with the Progressive Conservative Party.
and some of them were actually, I think, in 1993 specifically, because they were so
Yeah,
out
yeah,
of touch with Kim Campbell. Like a lot of red Tories actually ended up voting for Jean Chrétien
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
1993 election
True.
because they felt that like Jean Chrétien, what he actually fell through on, he actually like went on to do it. We all know that, sure, Brian Mulroney, when he was in power, negotiated NAFTA, but it was actually the Liberal government of Jean Chrétien after 1993 that actually ratified
Yeah.
the treaty in the House and then in the Senate as well. So that's why a lot of red Tories were voting for Jean Chrétien, because they felt that he could have actually done it in terms of
Mm.
passing in terms of actually ratifying the free trade piece of legislation. So
Which is
yeah,
highly
no,
controversial because it costed the political career of one of the greatest prime minister in Canada, Wilfrid Laurier.
yeah,
Yeah, he lost
Wilfrid
because of
Laurier,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Wilfrid Laurier was actually one of the first individuals in Canadian history to propose the idea of free trade with the United States. But of course, the conservative or the progressive conservatives way back in the day were like, no, 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 we're nationalists. We're not opening
The
anything up
border
with the
with
United
the
States
United States.
because if that happens, we're going to lose the country in that sense.
Yeah, that's always been like if there's something you need to learn about the Canada right now, it's the thing that Quebec has with the rest of Canada that we don't want to become Canadian. Well, Canada has the same fucking thing with the United States. Like I remember there's like JJ McCullough kind of identified like three big objective of what Canada is. The for Canadian, like the first objective is to keep the Quebecer in. The second objective is to keep the American out, and the third objective is to make the native kind of disappear.
Yeah, that video that he did on like
Yeah,
Canada has failed. Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
really, like, again, you could say what you will about JJ McCullough and some of his views on Quebec and bilingualism and all that, but he did a damn good job. Like
yeah,
he really does a good job with his videos on YouTube. And also I kind of like when he uses like the video game sounds like from like Mario Paint
yeah, yeah.
and
The
like
'90s
Mario.
video games. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that shit so much.
So to get back at 2011, I think it was a really important election
Yep.
because that was kind of a weird blip in the last 30 years, meaning that like what the election of '93 did is to establish the status quo in Canada, where you're gonna have like the Liberal Party in power, like either majority or minority, but still in power.
Yep. Yep.
Bloc Québécois is gonna suck up all the vote from Quebec, or at least a big bulk of it, and you have like the NDP being a third party, and the Conservative being like kind of non-existent, right? The 2011, what it did, it's kind of revert that narrative. Like basically, the bloc was near extinct. The
I
Conservative
remember that. I
was a
remember that.
majority without Quebec, and
Yeah.
the NDP
Only
was
the
the
set.
main opposition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I remember the Bloc Québécois getting extinct. Like the Bloc Québécois in that election had only 4 seats, and my
yeah,
riding of Ahunsik was one of those 4 seats. I ended up having Maria Morani, who was my MP at the time, who was one of the four remaining members there. You had no, that election
I
was very
almost
interesting
screamed that
because
night when I see a bunch of fucking Bloc Québécois lose and all my nationalist friend cry. That was fun. That was fun.
well, that election also brought up, and I still, in a way, miss him to this day. And I think a lot of Canadians have a lot of fond memories of him. But Jack Layton, who was
Yeah,
the then leader of the NDP, like even conservative members were like, that guy is genuine. He cares
yeah,
about the people. Like you know how Rex Murphy Was it
Yeah,
Rex
he's a bit
Murphy?
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a conservative, but he's also a bit inflammatory. So he has a good thing to say about Jack Layton, even him, right?
No, no. Even he's like the guy who Rex Murphy had lovely and wonderful things to say about
Yeah,
him. Also,
which is
you
kind
know,
of astonishing because he's kind of more of a polemist and he's really inflammatory and he doesn't like mince his word.
no, no, of course.
Yeah,
Um, of course, we all saw what happened with the NDP when it was the first and only time that they formed the official opposition.
yeah,
So we all saw what happened, of course, after Jack Layton's tragic death from cancer. Like, I still am
yeah,
haunted seeing the photos of him looking so gaunt and looking a bit skeletal because his
yeah,
body was just like, fuck, man. Why is it like? Like, why did it have to happen to him? You know, like, it shouldn't
yeah.
happen to anyone, but why did it have to happen to him specifically? Because
If
if
I
you
can
would
give
like,
Yeah, if I can give just a quick explanation of why I think the Bloc Québécois fell at that moment, like a French Québécois explanation, is when you look because what is the main feature of like Stephen Harper type of conservatism is it would be a less centralized federation, like a more loose
mm-hmm,
arrangement between the federal government and the provinces, right? So
mm-hmm,
in that sense, when your main thing is to be a nationalistic and pro separation of responsibilities between the federal and the province as a party like the Bloc Québécois is, well, you kind of lose of your identity like when it comes
mm-hmm,
to criticize such government. So the
mm-hmm,
angle they went for was versus left, like being a critics of the left wing politics, right wing politics of Stephen Harper. So it was less Quebec interest as it was Quebec values, and that was kind of weird because when you looked at it, a lot of French Quebecers hold like really conservative value, especially when it comes to nationalism and
yeah,
the relationship with minorities and stuff.
yeah,
And also by that time, like it was almost a running gag where the Bloc Québécois would be the French wing of the NDP. So
yeah.
at that time, that was the like usual joke you will hear about the Bloc Québécois. And also, what didn't help is by then, like Gilles Duceppe was really a belligerent person. He was always like going into fights with
Yeah.
people. And the line I think that kind of like put him KO is he killed himself basically on that French debate when he said to Jack Layton, "Well, you're never gonna be prime minister, as I will never be a prime minister, but at least I know I'll never be a prime minister." And he went really aggressively on Jack Layton because he noticed really soon that the NDP was eating the Bloc Québécois lunch.
No, no, of course. I mean, you could fault, like, I will say this to be 100% like upfront. Like back at like the Bloc Québécois at that time and still to this day, like, I just don't understand why they're still around. But like the new leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves François Blanchet, on occasion has said or has made sense on a couple of issues, or he attempted to actually be an adult
Yeah,
in the house, which is sorely needed.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I can give him credit for like Blanchette for being a sensible from time to time on certain issues, but yeah, I think yeah,
Yeah, when you look at the qualification of what Yves-François Blanchet is, like he used to be like the former agent of what his fucking name is, like ah François Blanchet was the agent of the manager, Eric Lapointe, like which is like kind of a cheap rocker that kind of looked like
hmm
he kind of looks like a fucking homeless guy on a native reservation, but in gay porn. Like he fucking look weird.
hmm
Yeah, I think I'll send you a picture of this guy just to give you an idea. Like Eric Lapointe, just a moment.
hmm
Lapointe. It's kind of mean to make fun of him because he kind of used to beat his wife. So it's oh yeah, there you go. So there you go. Wait a minute. Do I have? Yeah, this guy. Okay, I'm gonna share the screen. That's gonna not gonna be long. Do you know
hmm
who Eric Lapointe is?
no.
Okay, you're not missing shit. I kind of feel I kind of feel bad, like to okay, yeah, there you go. I kind of feel bad to show you who it is. You see who it is?
Okay.
Oh, this fucking guy. Yeah, he kind of looked like a cheap biker and gay strippers on the same time. It's kind of fucking weird. Like the guy kind of fucking weird. His music is fucking garbage. It's just ridiculous. So, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think could be. Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So, for you folks that are following us, thanks for being here. Please share and subscribe. So at least it looks like it's something's happening with its channel, and YouTube will finally recognize our existence. Nikos, what do you have to promote?
Um, just that I will be here again next week for the quick and dirty, and again, just follow me on Instagram, Captain Yolo 562, and that's pretty much it.
All right. So today we're receiving Shane Adler, a local Montreal comedian. We're going to record it in an hour at least, but it's gonna be live premiering on this channel at 8 p.m. So make sure to not miss it. Also, tomorrow night we're having the 34 premiering, but it's all right if you miss it because I'm gonna be at Brass Door doing my 5 minute set trying to get to JFL, I guess. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, like I'm gonna like fucking get those rust off after so long without being doing any comedy at all. So please come. Like if only the 4 people watching come, I'll be fucking happy. So just it's Brass Door on Crescent Street. It start at 8 if I remember well.
Mhm.
So there you go. Please stay tuned. And do you have anything to add, Nikos? No? Okay, so it is. This is it.
No.
Thank you. Fuck you. Bye.